Do no harm. This principle should be a cornerstone of how science competes in the world of ideas. Science needs to maintain its integrity. At the same time, it must retain compassionate respect for aspects of human nature that aren't reasonable. This balance of opposites extends to all aspects of modern thought. It isn't clear how to have a reasonable discussion on the nature of the self that both retains the integrity of science. The self is an emergent phenomenon and not some separately existing entity, yet allows each of us to feel that we are individuals and not mere machinery. I cannot imagine a world in which we fully accepted and felt that we were nothing more than fictional narratives arising out of mindless neurons, and I can't imagine how much empathy we would have with others if we saw disappointment, love, and grief solely as chemical reactions. In Crack Up, F. Scott Fitzgerald described an easy-to-accept but difficult-to-accomplish solution. The test of a first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposed ideas in the mind at the same time and still retain the ability to function, he said. This is the only practical alternative to cognitive dissonance, where one set of values overrides otherwise convincing contradictory evidence. This juggling act requires us to keep in mind what science is telling us about ourselves while acknowledging the positive benefits of non-scientific and/or unreasonable beliefs. Each position has its own risks and rewards. Both need to be considered and balanced within the overarching mandate. Above all, do no harm. Just as we learn to cope with the anxieties of sickness and death, we must learn to tolerate contradictory aspects of our biology. Our minds have their own agendas. We can intervene through greater understanding of what we can and cannot control by knowing where potential deceptions lurk, and by a willingness to accept that our knowledge of the world around us is limited by fundamental conflicts, which leads us back to the central question. Certainty is not biologically possible. We must learn and teach our children to tolerate the unpleasantness of uncertainty. Science has given us the language and tools of probabilities. We have methods of analyzing and ranking opinion according to their likelihood of correctness. That is enough. We do not need and cannot afford the catastrophe born out of a belief in certainty. As David Gross, PhD and a recipient of the 2004 Nobel Prize in Physics, said, "The most important product of knowledge is ignorance." Ask yourself the most basic of questions. How do you know what you know? And if your answer to that question is one that is absolute, certain, and inflexible, maybe you haven't thought about the question long enough.